Hi guys, good evening. Welcome back once again to the EdWord. You're getting your fill of me today. In this video, I will be discussing my review and recap for Season 4 of Season 1 of the CBS's Zoo. So before I proceed, as usual, with all my episode reviews, I must warn you, this will be full of spoilers. So if you are not caught up on Zoo, or if you haven't started watching Zoo and you want to start, do not watch or listen to this video, as I will be discussing key plot points from this episode and big spoilers. So that being said, you know, it's picking up. It's definitely getting more interesting. You know, I know a lot of people have probably have a couple of complaints with the show so far, saying how it's slow, it's boring, there's bad dialogue, there's nothing interesting. Well, you know, I could see why they would say that, but for me personally, since I have read and love the graphic novel, I know where they're going with this, and I'm enjoying it, so I'm just going along for the ride. And quite frankly, I think it's quite enjoyable despite whatever pace or speed they're going at. You know, now that all of our main characters have assembled, so to speak, you know, things are starting to pick up and get interesting. So in this episode, the team, after their briefing, go to Tokyo. They're in Tokyo. After their briefing, they're starting to get to know each other. Mitch and Jackson are kind of at odds because Mitch referred to Jackson's father as a notorious crackpot when the French director revealed that, you know, who Jackson's father was. But, you know, the characters are starting to assimilate and get to know each other. Chloe tells them they're all going to Mississippi to investigate a prison fire, and at first they're all confused, like, what does that have to do with animals? And she clarifies, the prison caught on fire while it was under attack by a pack of wolves. So that's where they go. They go to Mississippi, and they split into two teams. Chloe, Jackson, and Jamie all go to the prison, and Mitch and Abraham have to go hunt and trap a wolf for study to find out what is causing the wolves in the area to go batshit crazy. And Chloe makes them aware that they're officially on their own. They'll still report to the French intelligence director, Delavay, I believe his name was. And but officially, they're doing this all off the books. So, like, the government can have full deniability in case any of them are killed by animals or if any of their findings come to light. Because, you know, I think the government doesn't want to make it official yet because they don't want to induce a panic. And this is in the interests of national security. So I can understand why they're doing this off the books, as Chloe puts it. So Jamie, and Jackson go to the prison to investigate. And Jackson and Jamie are perplexed as to why there's no animal scat left behind. Like, he explains to Jamie, the alpha wolf, or the beta wolf, the leader of the pack, will leave scat for the rest of the pack to follow suit when on the hunt or engaging in an attack. But in this case, there was no scat left behind. In fact, these wolves made it very much possible for you to not even be able to tell they were there, with the exception of the bodies. And Chloe is speaking to the deputy chief of the prison, and she encounters an American FBI agent who's immediately suspicious that she's not really from the French embassy. And that's her cover. That's their cover. She and Jackson and Jamie are there from the French embassy because they're there to get the details on the remains of a French national who is supposedly an inmate there. That's the cover story. But the American FBI agent, who kind of hits on her and insults her at the same time, is starting to get suspicious. And while they're going on and off against each other, Jackson notices on the surveillance laptop that an FBI agent is watching that a white wolf approaches Evan Lee Hartley when he's outside, still within the confines of the prison from the last episode, except it backs away from him in submissive mode. And then Jackson reveals with Chloe and Jamie how he thought it was interesting that this wolf acted submissive toward Evan Lee Hartley when the wolves were killing about everybody else in the prison. And they did kill everybody else in the prison. We got confirmation. Chloe said that no guards or inmates were left alive. Everybody either burned to death, and those who didn't burn to death were killed by the wolves. You know, not eaten or devoured, just killed. And if you saw the last episode, which concluded with the wolf attack on the prison as it was happening, they were going through the throats, the back of the necks, like all big predators do, except, you know, these were just kill moves, not kill and eat move. These were just kill moves. So now they're curious as to what provoked these wolves to attack this prison. Meanwhile, after encountering some of the locals in a hunting shop to get hunting supplies and kind of being hassled for being eco-lovers and mocking Abraham and Mitch for wanting to take a wolf alive, Mitch and Abraham are now in the woods where the rest of the hunters are, because there are all these cars parked outside this patch of forest. They go in there with the intent to take a wolf alive, if possible. And so they can study it and maybe get some blood samples to figure out what's causing the wolves in that area to go crazy. And as they're tracking a wolf, Abraham trips and falls, and he gets separated from Mitch, but then he's temporarily taken captive at knife point by Evan Lee Hartley, who's smeared and covered in intestines. And at the exact same time, Jackson and Chloe have gone off into the woods to locate Mitch and Abraham with their update, while Jamie stayed behind to interview the widow who visited Evan Lee Hartley the day before the prison attack happened. So Jackson and Chloe head into the woods, and they're trying to find their friends, and they uncover a mutilated cow. Now, at first I thought, oh, well, there's just another victim of the wolf attack, so the wolves killed a local cow, and even the hunters in the hunting store said that, you know, there are families and farms out there, so of course this is a cow from one of the farms. But Jackson pointed out how this didn't really look like it was done by a wolf, but by something or somebody else, and how he explains the whole rolling in the smell of death theory to cover up your scent to Chloe. And sure enough, that's exactly what Evan Lee Hartley did. He's covered in cow's blood, and he's all gross and crappy looking. And, you know, Mitch eventually rushes up to join Abraham, but then he sees Evan Lee Hartley. And nobody's really armed because Abraham dropped the net gun when he tripped, and Mitch isn't armed, so Evan has them both at knife point. Meanwhile, 2 or 3 of the wolves have encircled them, but it's unclear if they are following Evan's orders or not, or if they do see him, but they don't sense him as a threat or a prey item because he's covered in cow's blood. We just don't know. Although this could collaborate with the theory Jackson was working on of how these wolves, for some bizarre, crazy reason, saw Evan Lee as their alpha leader. Doesn't really ring a bell or work with me necessarily, although if they attempt to explain it, I hope it's a good explanation. Oh, and while all of this is happening, we go down to Antarctica. We're in Antarctica at this research base with these 2 scientists, these 2 women who are scientists and their lovers, and they're trying to, you know, they have a little greenhouse and they have some birds, some seagulls, and some doves there. And it sounds like they're on a scientific expedition while also trying to patch up their strained relationship with each other. And as they're arguing, bats begin swarming the solar panels. These bats, like hundreds of bats, come out of nowhere, and they just swarm the solar panels, thus cutting off electricity to the research base, trapping the 2 women. And while all of this is happening up in Mississippi, you know, after, you know, Evan Lee, he escapes from Mitch and Abraham because the gunshots from the hunters drive him off, and then the wolves at the same time also take off. But that time Jackson and Chloe show up to regroup with Mitch and Abraham, and they warn them, hey, Evan Lee might be out there. Like, yeah, we know, he just had us at knife point. He's like, and we still don't have a wolf, we still have a job to do. Oh, there's a dead one back there, because they encountered one that had been shot by the hunters, and it was barely alive, but it was nonetheless alive. So they take it back with them. Meanwhile, Jamie is, after speaking to the widow, and the widow, how she tells Jamie how Evan Lee kept referring to his Bible with all the answers being in here, that intrigued Jamie, so she goes back to the prison, lies to the guard saying she's there for a follow-up inspection of Evan's cell, finds his Bible, opens it up, skimming through it, and sure enough, there's a photograph. We don't see the photograph, but she's clearly holding a photograph, and a bunch of underlined sentences as well. So then she's looking at all this stuff, and I don't know how, and they don't show and they don't explain it, but what I'm guessing is that they're on the ground level of the hotel room, and with the window right there, they must have just snuck in this dead wolf without anybody seeing it. I don't know. That part seemed kind of unbelievable to me, quite frankly. I mean, I didn't really have much of a problem with it, but at the same time, like, okay, what the hell? How is that possible? How could you sneak in a giant animal, without drawing attention to yourself? My guess is they threw blankets or baggage over it, and Abraham, being the biggest of the group, carried it into the hotel room. And they quickly draw some blood, and using a little coffee maker, Mitch explains to everybody how, once they get, once they have coconut, they use coconut juice as a stimulant to see what kind of reaction it gets when you put the wolf's blood that they withdrew from the wolf into this coffee pot. And it should let them know if there's some unusual activity going on in the wolf's brain system. And sure enough, the coffee pot blows up, indicating there's definitely some kind of bacterial pathogen or something. There's something definitely inside the wolf. But Jackson does point out how just because there's something in this wolf doesn't mean there's something in the lions in Africa, or the dogs in Slovenia, or the cats and lions in LA, or the bats in Japan. He does bring that up. So it'll be interesting to see if they get other animal corpses as to whether or not all these animals will have this tainted blood, so to speak. So overall, I liked it. Good episode. And of course, with the ending, and then while all of this is happening, let me backstep a little bit. While all this is happening, you have these two female scientists who are freezing in this research base, and so they have a little heater running to warm up the place. One of the women heads out there to scare away the bats, but while she's taking off her coat inside, one of the little bastards has stayed on her back until she removes the coat, and it flies into the room, and it scares both the women, kind of hissing and coming at them, but it's flying erratically until it finally crash lands, for lack of a better term, crash lands into their little electric heater, killing itself, but destroying their electric heater, leaving them without heat again, and without electricity. And it's almost as if the bat was in there on a suicide mission to intentionally take out their source of warmth. That's the impression I got, at least, because I thought to myself, what if the bats sent in one of their own to take out their source of heat so they could make them freeze to death, since they're constantly swarming the solar panels? And sure enough, they look out the window, and the bats she scared away have returned to swarm the solar panels. And one of the women jokingly suggests, as they're both sitting there freezing, reminiscing about happy past times in their relationship, about maybe we should let the birds go. Maybe they're here for their friends. She jokingly suggests, but then her partner says, "Are you suggesting that all the winged creatures in the animal kingdom look out for each other?" Because they have a couple of seagulls and a couple of doves. And so the one woman was suggesting that the bats wanted the women to let the birds go. And we don't see that happen. And in fact, that's the last we see of these two women, as far as we know, for the episode. But as the episode wraps up, they're cleaning up their hotel room. Mitch is calling animal control to report the dead wolf. They're probably just going to leave it drooped outside somewhere as they leave. And the American FBI agent shows up as an act of courtesy to warn Chloe that the deputy chief is on his way to question them because of Jamie's unauthorized inspection of Evan's cell. So they all quickly get out of there into the rental car, and they meet Jamie at the rental car place because Jamie had called Chloe and telling her what she had found, but Chloe said, "Don't come back to the hotel, we'll meet you at the rental car place." So they meet up there. All of our characters have reunited, and they all bring each other up to speed of what's going on. It concludes with Jamie showing them the photograph she retrieved from Evan's Bible. And son of a bitch, it's a photo of him standing next to Jackson's father, the late Robert Oz. And, Jamie asks him, cluelessly, like, "Jackson, do you know who this is?" Because she notices the look in his eye. But Abraham and Jackson recognize Jackson's father, in the photograph with Evan. And it's interesting because earlier in the episode, when they first arrived, they're doing research on Evan Lee Hartley. Turns out he was an upstanding, hardworking citizen who worked in a biological lab somewhere, and they didn't specify at the time. But at the end of the episode, we realized, oh, so that's the lab he worked in. He worked with Jackson's father, and out of the blue one day, something in him snapped, and he killed. And by repeatedly stabbing to death a whole hunting party, which is why he was on death row in prison in Mississippi. And none of his family and friends were confused because he was such a peaceful guy, and then all of a sudden he does something like this. They don't know what happened to him, made him snap. And some people called him an eco-terrorist because he claimed the reason he killed all the hunters was because nobody should be hunting ever, anywhere. So it's interesting to see if Evan has some intimate knowledge as to the animal hyper-aggressive phenomenon currently engulfing the world, and if he's using that to his advantage to survive the wolves in the forest. And speaking of which, we see the FBI agent and the deputy chief in the FBI in the woods where Chloe had tipped him off to where they saw Evan. Sure enough, they find the body of a local hunter whom Evan killed, took his clothes and put his prison jumpsuit on the dead hunter, and then we see Evan in the hunter's pickup truck driving away somewhere with no wolves in sight. So I doubt Evan was actually really controlling the wolves. It was more of a case where he was covering up his scent so they wouldn't detect him as a threat or a prey item. So I think he was using the knowledge that he got from Jackson's father for his own personal self-preservation. But it'll be interesting to see now that they've revealed that Evan was probably a lab assistant who worked with Jackson's father, and how much knowledge of this crisis that Evan actually has, and if he would be willing to share it. And then, of course, the end of the episode is we see the bird cages are open and the birds are missing. The window is open and the bats who were swarming, covering the solar panels, finally fly away. And we see the two women who are both now frozen to death, side by side with each other. Which is kind of sad, but at least they went out happy, reminiscing about happy times. But it kind of proved the one woman's theory that the bats probably came there with the intention of forcing the two women to release their captive birds so they'd all be free, and then they intentionally took out their electricity and their heat so that the women would freeze to death. So it makes you wonder, because of this tainted blood they found in the wolf, is it true, and is the blood in all of the animals or just the wolves? Or are these animals getting smarter to the point where they can actually work together and conspire with each other? Conspire might not be the right term, but you guys know what I mean. It's getting interesting. I like it so far, and I'm definitely holding out for this show. I really, really hope it gets renewed for another season. But you know what? If this is the one and only season they do because of people's reception to it, or it doesn't get the ratings, if we get one season, so be it. I mean, I'd be happy with just that, because I really wanted to see this graphic novel turned into a show or a movie, and I'm glad it finally happened. Well, thank you very much for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Zoo as much as I did. And if you're still not convinced by it, hold out for just a little bit longer, because from the promos that I've seen, it looks like it's going to get really interesting really fast, and things continue to pick up and escalate. Please just hold it out for a little while longer, guys. Thanks again for tuning in and subscribing, and leave your thoughts and opinions in your comments down below. Let's be respectful and civil of one another's opinions and beliefs. And stay tuned for stay tuned for Ghostface's upcoming recap videos regarding the most recent episodes of Scream, as he and I have a lot to catch up on regarding Scream, the TV series. So stay tuned for those, and keep an eye out for Ghostface. So, until next time, you guys, may the Force be with you.